Hello, today I'm making snow ice cream, but not the modern kind that everybody's talking about. We're going to make a version of it that they would have made during the colonial time periods. They would have been using ingredients that they actually had on hand because they're not running out to the store. They're using things like just the snow that has fallen, milk that they would have had from their cow, and maple syrup that was also something that most people would have been doing during the colonial time period, is tapping trees to get their own maple syrup. Snow cream wasn't really something that was written down in early cookbooks. It was something that was a simple winter treat that was passed down through the families that the children especially were enjoying. Whenever it would snow like this, the children had already been cooped up inside and they couldn't wait. So they would go out and they would get a big bowl of clean, fresh snow. I'm talking about snow that wasn't on where the chickens would have already been walking or on the path to the outhouse. It would have been the good, clean snow outside the door. They didn't have refrigeration during colonial time period. So when the snow fell, it became a natural way to eat something that would be frozen. Ice cream was something that maybe George Washington he would have, but once the ice cream was made, it was instantly consumed because they couldn't freeze it. You weren't sitting at home and deciding you're going to be binge watching and getting your gallon of ice cream out of the freezer. So you're not doing ice cream during the summer, you're doing ice cream in the winter. And if a family kept cows, they'd have milk or cream available. And most colonial families did have a dairy cow, or at least the neighbor did, but that was how they had their milk and their cream. They weren't running to the store getting their milk. They had to actually go out to the barn and milk. So cream would have been something that would have been a very popular treat that they didn't eat every day. So they sometimes would use the cream for their snow ice cream. I'm going to use just regular milk. And all you're going to do with that is actually we're going to bust our snow up a little bit just so that make sure it's nice and fluffy and not really clumpy. And then we're going to pour some of the milk in. And you can see how it already starts to change texture. And depending on how much how much snow you're using to make your ice cream will depend on how much milk you're going to need. You're just going to want to make sure that it's mixed in pretty good. And you can see how the texture changes to being something light and fluffy to more of a frozen type of a treat. And instead of white sugar, which was something that was very, very expensive, that would have been something that someone like David Bradford would have had because he would have traded and he would have had it imported in, and he would have been able to afford white sugar to show off. But most families would not have something like white sugar. They would have had either maple syrup or honey. However, honey was more of a challenge because they still haven't fully figured out the hives and how to keep bees like we do in modern times today. So maple syrup would have been something that they would have had because maple trees were abundant in early America, and they would have been out there tapping the trees to get the syrup. It would have been a lot thicker of a consistency, so I had already warmed my maple syrup and made it a little bit more runny so that it would come out for the video. And you're just going to add enough to sweeten it for your taste. And like I said, maple syrup would definitely be something that would have been common to sweeten things with. So this would have made it a really sweet treat to make the ice cream. And if you would like it more sweetened, you could always add more. About 2 to 3 tablespoons would probably be enough to make it pretty sweet. This wasn't a fancy type of a recipe. It was more of a quick, simple, and again, made to be eaten right away because they didn't have a way to freeze it. So it would have been something that maybe whenever the cousins came over or the kids were just good and the parents wanted to reward them for doing their chores in the snow, or they were just that cooped up inside that they wanted to give them something. This is something that they would have been looking forward to all year, was snow ice cream. It's just one of those simple joys that help brighten those long days of sitting inside the cabin next to the fire. So even though snow ice cream might be a modern comfort food, and it's something that connects us to the colonial time period. We eat ice cream all the time, and they actually looked forward to their snow ice cream during the colonial time periods. If you've ever made snow ice cream before, let me know how your family makes it and if you enjoy it and look forward to it every year as well.